point fingers, but you know who you are. You didn't say something that you loved. You said something that you liked about the city. Now I thought that was interesting because the question, as the professor over here pointed out, was tell us something you love about the city. You know, and she kind of chided folks for having these long lists and whatnot. But I listened for the other word. Like and love are not the same thing. It's easy to like something, right? We like things on Facebook all the time. Like. We like things on Instagram. Actually, you heart things on Instagram, so I guess you love things on Instagram. But here's the point. Liking is easy. Love is actually a little bit more difficult. And I think there's something about that word that in public discourse we get a little nervous about. Because this is supposed to be serious. This is supposed to be hard work, right? And we're supposed to be serious people. And love is, love's a little out there. Love's a little more ephemeral. Love is different. And I think we got to make it okay to say that you love something, especially when you love your city. And that's very much what I am about. And I think part of this goes to the way we think about emotions. That emotions, sorry, ladies, we associate emotions with being more feminine. And as men, it's sometimes difficult for us to allow ourselves to vocalize love around it. So love feels softer. Love feels less important because there's serious problems we have out there. And again, I'm going to call BS on that notion there as well. That somehow, I think what has happened is we equate love with sort of optimism. And somehow we've made optimism intellectually inferior to pessimism, right? We call people cockeyed optimists, right? And we say that in sort of a derogatory sort of way. And somehow pessimism seems to be very much the norm around a lot of things. Somehow pessimism is intellectually superior to that. Again, I think that's wrong. I think pessimists, they tend to look at the problem. They want to focus on the problem. I don't think optimists don't see the problem. The optimist says, yeah, I see the problem, but you know what? I see something beyond the problem over here, and I can help us get there. All right? So let's not be afraid to use the word love in public discourse. And we, as the leaders in a place, we have to be maybe the most vocal about this stuff. Because if we're a little wishy-washy about this, how do we expect anybody else to be sort of all in on this as well? So when somebody says, hey, what do you love about this place? It says, well, I got a list. And let me tell you about that. So love is okay. So let's make it okay for us to say love here today, all right? So as you can tell, I'm the city love guy. I talk about love and emotional engagement with places. I'm the guy who comes and talks to people and says, what do you love about your place? And people who come out and hear a guy who's written books about love, chances are they already do love their place. Certainly it is on all of your professional interest to love this place. And we'd like to believe that everyone here does love this city. That's probably true. And we'd like to believe that our friends and our family, et cetera, et cetera. But the sad truth is that not nearly enough of us actually love our places. So it is on us, those of us who do love a place, we need to be the emotional standard bearers and carry that message of love out there and help our fellow residents see and feel the city the way that we do. Because remember this, emotions are contagious. You smile, I smile. You cry, I feel bad. When more people start saying they love Newport News, more people are going to see it, more people are going to feel it, more people are going to believe it. And maybe we can create a virtuous cycle, where good things compound upon good things, and all of a sudden now people are going to say, hey, have you been to Newport News lately? And say, yeah, there's something going on. And you can literally feel it, right? Now, most of our citizens, most of our residents, don't have that sort of nature of that complex relationship with their place. In fact, most people's relationship with their place is not nearly as deep, not nearly as nuanced, and in fact, it can kind of be summarized by one thing, and it's actually the pothole. Now, none of us like potholes, right? And we as residents, we will complain to our leaders to fix the potholes, and you guys will eventually get around to fixing the potholes. And it's this ongoing song and dance, right? Here's the thing, we can fix every pothole in Newport News, we can fix every pothole in Hampton Roads, every pothole in Virginia. And you, the collective residents, would yawn, stretch, and say, yeah, thanks, roads don't suck quite so bad. No love for fixing potholes. There is no emotional return on investment for fixing potholes. It's not to say we're going to stop fixing the potholes, but I think we can agree that we should aspire to something more, right? And here's the tricky part. Our residents know to ask for us to fix the potholes, right? It's pretty obvious. Hole in the road and the car's going to fall into it. Somebody really ought to fix that, right? And our residents don't necessarily know how to ask for other things. They don't know how to ask for beauty, art, and great design. That's not in their vocabulary. So we as the thought leaders in a place not only have to listen to what our residents are going to ask for, and of course they're going to ask for the most basic thing. Hey, fix the potholes. Make sure the police and fire service arrive if I ever need them. But at heart, we know they want something more. And after we've given it to them, they're going to say, man, how the heck did I ever live without this stuff, right? So So we're thinking about building a better community, a better place. We have to meet some minimum threshold requirements. To be a working place, of course, you have to be functional and you have to be safe, right? Now, I get it, that periodically city budgets get really tight. And somebody's going to say, well, money's tight right now. It always is cyclically tight. Somebody's going to say, well, money's tight. Let's make it functional. Let's make it safe. We paint it battleship gray and we kick it out the door and that's good enough. No, I don't think so. I don't think even the most fiscally conservative tax hawks amongst us want to live in a really functional, safe, and battleship gray community. Okay? So what could we aspire to in our places? What should we aspire to in our places? Well, how about comfort? Why can't our city be comfortable? How about convivial in the sense that our city actually helps facilitate bringing us together and connecting us with each other? Why isn't our city interesting? And maybe even more appropriately, why isn't our city fun? Where's the fun is a perfectly legitimate question that we should be asking a whole heck of a lot more in the context of better placemaking, right? Now, think about this. All of you have been involved in meetings back with your team in your office, in your department, down there with some big hairy problem down there in the weeds, right? Maybe you're here today because you want to avoid that meeting back in the office. Good, fine. But eventually we're going to get pulled into that meeting. The next time we find ourselves in that meeting, it'd be very interesting if one of you would raise your hand, look around at your team and says, okay, fine, I see what we're doing here, but I got to ask, where's the fun? Because when you ask that question, you actually change the dynamic in the room and the way people are fundamentally thinking about the problem. You ask, where's the fun? And someone might actually look up from their phone. They might smile a little bit and go, yeah, where's the fun? And in that moment, you've opened up the door to the possibility of something beyond a merely technically sufficient solution. Where's the fun? Great question to ask. Now think about this. We've all been involved with all kinds of projects that have all kinds of requirements and specifications, right? When was the last time you ever saw fun as a stated, articulated goal of any project you've ever worked on? Even a project which, say, by its very nature, should be fun. A park, a playground, something like that. There's all kinds of environmental, structural, insurance requirements. Not one mention of the word fun. Why not? Why not at least put that out there? And maybe somebody who's in charge of delivering that solution, one of your teammates there who's in charge of delivering that, they might look at that and go, huh, management wants it to be fun. How about if we try this? I don't know what this is today. You don't have to know what this is today, but maybe somebody who's a little closer to delivering that solution might have a pretty good idea of what this could be in the context of that particular problem if we at least plant the seed and the hope and maybe even the expectation of something beyond a merely technically sufficient solution. So again, where's the fun is a great question to ask. And it was up here on the board. Several of you guys mentioned this is a fun place. Well, I think we need to imbue that into the work that we do. Because again, by asking that question, you will get better results just because you're opening up the lens on the way we think about the problem, right? So, the things that I write about and the stories that I usually tell are oftentimes about the things that people love about their places. And most times, they're relatively small things, kind of personal, kind of intimate. And in my books, I liken them to the idea of a handwritten note that goes with the gift, right? And all of us have done this. At some point in our life, we gave a gift to our significant other and we forgot to give a card or a note with that gift, right? That's a mistake, because that card, that note means something. Just we take a moment, we make it personal, we make it special. And that small gesture will oftentimes have an outsized impact on the way that person is going to feel about the gift, by extension, the way they feel about us. Small thing, outsized impact. These love notes are things that cities will give to their residents, and if cities are very lucky, the residents might actually be inclined to give back to the city as well. Got a few examples here for you. This is the Lawn on D in Boston, Massachusetts. About 5 years ago, they had this about 2.7 acres, 2.4 acres, something like that, under 3 acres, adjacent to their downtown convention center. And they're trying to figure out how to activate this space. And their solution was, for lack of a better description, to create an adult playground, right? So they bring in the comfy Adirondack chairs, you can pick them up and move them all around. They brought in swings, but not just any kind of swings, they brought in adult-sized swings, right? They say, hey, why should kids have all the fun? And then they started to program the heck out of this space, right? So now there's wine tastings, there's beer gardens, there's pop-up retail, there's yoga, there's Zumba, there's giant Jenga, right? By the way, giant Jenga is a spectator sport, because when it starts to tilt, you'll stop, you'll watch, and when it goes over, you will laugh. Hey, all right, cool. So again, they're activating this space. Now, I think this is kind of brilliant, because notice where this is. It's adjacent to the convention center. Think about that. Think about how many thousands of conventioneers cycle in and out of that convention center every week, right? And most of them are going to look out that window and go, that looks so much more interesting than the tax class I'm supposed to be at over here, right? And hopefully they find their way out onto the lawn and they have a great time. Again, locals love it, tourists love it, probably even more there as well. In the grand scheme of Boston, this is a small thing, but I suspect it would have a pretty big outsized impact on the way you're going to see, and what you're going to feel about your city as a whole. Small thing, outsized impact. This is a very small thing. This is Mill Ends Park in Portland, Oregon. And according to Guinness, it is actually the world's smallest official city park. And it's not much bigger than a planter, right? But for over 60 years, the city and their parks department has taken great pride and great pleasure in maintaining this tiny little park. And that's adorable, right? So yeah, if you're a tourist, you go, oh, yeah, that's amazing. It's like, and if you're a local, you go, yes, we're very proud of our little park there. So again, this is the kind of thing you remember about a place, and definitely a love note. Or how about this one? Now this one I added this last night because of a conversation we had. The Beltline in Atlanta is an amazing love note. It's a big love note, no doubt about it. And basically what it is, it's going to be this sort of pathway, bike and walkway. It's going to ultimately be about 22 miles around the city. And it's already, about a third of it is done now. It's already opened up some amazing redevelopment opportunities there in the city. And it's very much a love note. The reason I added this was because of this. The Government Ditch, which is the worst name ever.
I told Peter, any place else our Government Ditch would be called Riverwalk.
Yeah, there you go. Instead it's called Government
But that is an actual picture.
Yeah. So I think this is what potentially could be a future love note. I know there's actually some of the discussion points around this there as well, because again, right, Government Ditch doesn't inspire anybody, but Riverwalk or something kind of does. And the fact is you own the land, and that was even more important around the Beltline there in Atlanta. Is it was
and properties adjacent to it we own as well.
Yes.
Yeah, Peter, and I'm so glad you bring this up because particularly as it relates to the piece of property in our city around the River Farm situation, city farm property, because when you've been here and that's all you've seen is what we've had, what we have, you don't know the possibilities. And I think when we're looking at land, it's easy for us to think of what we want, but if we haven't been around to see the possibilities, we can't even imagine what we can have.
Yeah. Well, in part, that's why we have meetings like this. That's why you bring in, folks like me who can be your eyes around the world. Say, hey, I've seen this, let me show you some cool stuff. So, but yeah, and part of it is over time, people you get used to a certain norm,
Exactly.
and sometimes you need something to shake that up. Because, change is uncomfortable. Even positive change can be uncomfortable there. So we as leaders need to make it, sort of understandable and okay for people to feel a little uncomfortable as they experience something new. We're going to talk more about that here as well. But definitely a future love note, and it needs a new name. Dog parks are love notes. Apologies to those of you who own cats and birds and fish and ferrets. You don't walk your cat, and if you do, people think you're a little odd, right? No, we walk our dogs. When we walk our dogs, we're actually out there using green space, interacting with the environment, creating a sense of activity that, hey, there's something going on, right? And dog parks are social. People will talk to each other at the dog park, right? Now, they don't know your name, but they do know your dog's name. And eventually they will get around to learning your name as well. And that's a bit of social capital that didn't exist before, because the dog's essentially broken the ice and negotiated that encounter for you. Very cool. And there's a side benefit to this as well. The dogs and dog owners provide a sense of safety. It's not because people have to own an attack dog or anything like that, but the fact is that we dog owners are out there all hours of the day and night walking our dogs. Creating what Jane Jacobs, the great urbanist, called the eyes of strangers on the street. There's nothing worse than walking down a completely empty street or an empty parking lot or something like that. But hey, if there's a dog and a dog walker out there, it's all good, right? So maybe there's some neighborhoods here we'd like to see get better, get safer. Maybe it's as simple as a strategically placed little dog park. Or it's even simpler. It's one of those mitts in a stand and a place to throw the poop that basically says dogs are welcome here. It's amazing to me how dogs in cities humanize cities for the better. And talk about a serious ROI on something, that is a really easy one. You need some fencing. And I know the National Recreation and Parks Association recommends that a city dog park officially be 2 acres, because the dogs don't care. The dogs would be very happy in a pen. And we'd be very happy to do that. So, so we can overthink that particular problem. Murals are love notes. I love a good mural. This one's from downtown St. Petersburg, Florida, where I live. Nikolai Tesla, very cool. It's part of the Shine Mural Arts Festival, which becomes huge in St. Petersburg over the last several years. Again, I love a good mural. But here's the thing, I can't paint. Most of us can't paint, right? So there's what I would call an emotional distance between me and the mural. I look at it, I appreciate it, I love that it's there, but again, emotional distance because I can't paint. Well, some folks in Michigan, Ludington, Michigan, figured something interesting out. Now Ludington, you know, folks in Michigan, they hold up their hands like, where are you from? It's like they hold up a mitt, right? It's over here on the knuckle, like on the west coast of Michigan, about halfway up, right? So about 5 years ago, Ludington had this ugly downtown wall. And what they did is they commissioned an artist to come in and do sort of a paint by numbers outline on the wall. And then over one weekend, they invited the entire community to come down, grab a number, grab a bucket of paint, go paint your number. And the result was this. Now, as art goes, not high art, but it is highly interactive public art. It's the kind of public art people are going to point to and say, hey, I helped paint that. And we feel very differently about something we have had a hand in the making of, right? You know, so one of the things we ought to be thinking about here is how do we allow more of our residents to roll up their sleeves and get a little dirty? Now, this is going to make Colleen nervous, and that's okay. His job is to tell you the risks. It's not to eliminate risk, and it's all because everything is inherently risky. It's not about risk. It's not risk elimination. It's risk management. He'll tell you the downside. He'll tell you the risk.
No, but he's a recovery.
See what he's doing now.
There's still hope, Colin.
But here's the thing. We can figure this stuff out, because other places have figured this stuff out. You know, and so there's times, I've had this conversation with like other councils and, you know, staff and whatnot, and sometimes, you know, the city attorney isn't in the room, and I say, well, you know, our city attorney is like very nervous about this. Like, okay, see, here's what you do. Here's what you do. You say, well, you know, that other city figured it out. Go to your city attorney and say, hey, you know, that city attorney in Ludington, Michigan figured this out. Is he smarter than you? No, of course not. So, no, this is, again, I'm
City council is Northern too.
but here's the thing. There's risk in everything, right? But the upside, the potential upside on something like this is really quite significant there. You know, I'm not asking folks to sandblast the walls there or be part of the demolition group. We're putting paint on walls. So again, there's ways to manage this. We can do this. Yes?
Part of that, though, is that we have to be open to allow that to happen.
Yes.
Because that's the generation of now. And sometimes we're so fixated, I don't like that. It's not about us.
No, it's not.
It's about
Yeah.
allowing the creativity, because where we have people, say for instance, that do graffiti or whatever, and I remember one of the police officers, where can they just go do a wall?
Right.
And it'd be okay to do a wall?
Right.
Well, there's no place that we would allow that in.
Yeah.
I think we have to be.
It may not be to our taste, but you know,
Right.
again, other people are it's like
But that would keep them from doing the graffiti.
Exactly.
At least they have a place.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, the solution to graffiti is not whitewashing the wall. There, we'll talk about this later. But the solution to graffiti is better graffiti. You know, a mural that will actually protect your walls there as well. And you raise an interesting point. And sort of on the macro level, I say this sometimes to leaders like, who are we actually doing this for? Who are we designing it for? It's not for us. It's for our kids and our kids' kids as well. So whatever taste we might have about something, however we may feel about, let's say, cars, or however we may feel negatively about scooters or something like that. It's like, I would never ride one of those. It's like, not about you. It's not about us. It really is about that next generation or two. So thank you for bringing that up. This is an interesting one. Interesting love note. This is Walk Raleigh. And in January 2012, a graduate student by the name of Matt Tomasulo spends a weekend hanging up a bunch of signs in downtown Raleigh. And unlike most signs, which are usually all about cars and traffic, these were signs that were all about people and walking, right? So I interviewed Matt for my second book and asked him about this project. He says, well, the whole idea behind this was to get people to consider the option of walking. Because let's face it, most of us will reflexively get in our cars even to go just a few blocks, right? Just out of habit. But if you knew it was an 18-minute walk, 7-minute walk, 10-minute walk, something like that, you go, yeah, let's go for a walk. Yeah, it's a nice day. You know, hey, my doctor says I need to get more exercise, and hey, my Fitbit's telling me I need to get more steps, right? Cool, let's go for a walk. So again, starting a conversation about the merits of walking in his city. And folks said, yeah, downtown Raleigh, very, very walkable, cool. Press coverage around this was universally positive. In fact, it was so good that a couple weeks after the signs went up, a BBC film crew showed up because they heard Americans had discovered walking in cities. Like, hey, cool. All good, right? Well, about a month after the signs went up, someone from the local newspaper contacted the city's planning director and says, excuse me, it appears no one ever had permission to put up these signs. Would you care to comment? And he said, yeah, thanks. Now I gotta take the signs down. I said, yeah, technically no one had permission to put up these signs, right? So, but the city was a big fan of the signs, so they brought them down, but they put them back up very quickly afterwards under the auspices of a pilot project, right? Even bigger and better than before. What this project really underscores to me is this fundamental fact. Sometimes, somebody's got to break the rules in order to get us to the place we know we actually want to be. Now, I'm a lawyer by training, right? But one of the things I remember from law school is there's the letter of the law and there's the spirit of the law. And in between the two, there's a tension. And in that tension, the law evolves, right? Well, of course, in our cities, there's the rules, the code, the regulation, but then there's the goal. And the goal should be a better, more interesting, more lovable city. Well, sometimes our rules and regulations don't allow us to get there. They don't allow us to get there in the most expeditious way possible. And sometimes we need somebody who's willing to step outside the system to help unjam the system to, again, get us a place we know we actually want to be. Now, I get it. Maybe it's not the best thing for the city manager or the mayor or council folks to be the ones out there breaking the rules. Because somebody's going to say, well, you know, if the mayor's breaking that rule, well, what about other rules the mayor's breaking? And who wants to invite that kind of scrutiny? I totally get that, right? So many of you sit in those positions where it's really not appropriate maybe for you to be out there breaking the rules. But you know what? If you can't be that person who breaks the rules, then you know what you can do? You can have the backs of those who do. Because when they're doing something like this, they're absolutely performing a public service for you guys. Now, if Matt was in the sign selling business, this would have been received very differently. But he's not. Again, he's trying to do something positive for his community, right? So, I talked to lots of people, and again, you know, his job is risk management, not risk elimination, and I get that. So, but here's the thing, you know who are really good rule breakers and risk takers? Young people and artists. Young people will run through that metaphorical wall and leave a person-sized outline as they go through it. That is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Most of us, we've been around the block a few times, we're a little reluctant to do that anymore because we know it hurts, right? But God bless those young people, that's what interns are for. Go, right? And artists? Well, artists will take on authority just because they're artists. I got a fun example here for you. This is from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Now, Grand Rapids is the home of this art prize competition, which has been going on for about 15 years now. And several years ago, an artist came to the art prize folks with this idea. It says, hey, I want to do these Chinese lanterns for art prize. They said, well, you know that involves fire, right? I said, yeah, yeah. And they showed him the design. It says, you know, how it would actually prevent fire from happening. He says, and don't worry, we're only going to do 2,000. I said, oh, okay. They go to the city. So he looks at the design, cool. 2,000, great. They go to the fire marshal. Fire marshal looks at the design, very smart. 2,000, great. Well, everybody signs off on it. And the actual night of the event, the artist shows up and they launched 20,000 of these lanterns. Right? 2,000 is beautiful. 20,000 is spectacular. And by all accounts, it's one of the most memorable nights in recent history in downtown Grand Rapids. Now, I had a chance to talk with the leadership there in Grand Rapids about this project. I says, well, officially, we might not do it again. They said, at the very least, we'd ask some different questions. Fair enough. But privately, they said it was the coolest thing ever. I'm so glad it actually happened. 2,000 is beautiful. 20,000 is spectacular. And again, it took an artist breaking the rules to, again, get us the place we knew we actually wanted to be. By the way, no fires. Now, this one also breaks some rules. And the reason I added this is because we were having a conversation last night about your story, your rebranding of the city. Now, there's certain rules in marketing that happen. And one of the rules in marketing is you market your strength, right? This is what we're really good at. We market our price. We market, you know, our brand proposition and all that. You don't necessarily take a negative and market that, except when you do. Now, this is an actual ad campaign from Vilnius, which is in Lithuania. This is about from about 2 years ago. They launched this thing. Vilnius. Nobody knows where it is, but when you find it, it's amazing. Vilnius, the G-spot of Europe. This is an actual ad campaign, and it included ads like this and videos like this. That breaks some rules. So again, part of, you know, as you go through this rebranding process, you know, folks are going to say, well, we're good at this, we got to add this. It's like, yeah, okay, but maybe you go a different direction, because everybody lists all the things you do. It's like, where was it? What is it? What's the current one? Well, it's not here. Where was it? Where good things happen?
Great
Great things happen. Sorry, that's me as the outsider. I can say that there. So I think as you rethink that, let's be willing to maybe poke a little fun at ourselves and to own something. Maybe take a negative. That maybe say, what do people think about us? I don't know. And along those lines, somebody said in their introduction, somebody's talked about Newport Newsians. It's like, that's a mouthful, right? And the term for that is demonym. So what's the demonym of your city? It's like, oh, we're known as Newport Newsians. Kind of a mouthful. I thought, why aren't you guys Newsies? Seriously, why aren't you Newsies? I mean, it's easier to say. It sounds a little more fun, a little more hip. We're Newsies. Just throwing it out there. There as well. So, okay. So that breaks some rules. Cool. All right. Millennium Park in Chicago is a big, giant, expensive love note. How many folks have been to Millennium Park in Chicago? Yeah. It's kind of amazing, right? This is called Cloudgate, known locally as the Bean. And the first time you approach the Bean, you're going to do this. You're going to find your own reflection. You're going to take your own picture, right? Selfie. You'll take this picture of the skyline there. And while you're doing that, you're seeing lots of people coming up and interacting with this. They're touching the art because they're kind of playing with it like a giant funhouse mirror, because that's essentially what it is. And as you look over your shoulder, you're going to see this, those two water towers. And these water towers are actually covered in video screens. So then during the summer months, they have these eyes will open, and will smile at you, and then they have these water cannons that shoot water out onto the deck, creating what is essentially a giant above-ground pool. And on a typical summer day, you'll see hundreds of kids playing in that pool, right? Now, city-making point number one that we'd all do very well to remember is when kids are happy, parents are happy, right? We know this, we feel this, and kids love these water features. Cities, not so much. Because they are kind of expensive, they always break down. Those darling children will sometimes do unspeakable things in there, and somebody has to clean that stuff up. I don't have a solution to that last bit, but I did take this picture in a little town outside of Pittsburgh. This is Braddock, Pennsylvania, little downtown park, kids are playing, and there in the corner, that is a garden hose. I believe we have a tendency to overthink the solution source of these problems. Because the city manager's handbook says, oh, you want a splash pad, you want a water feature? Costs this much money. It's like, well, we don't have that much money. Well, we're trying to find the budget next year, meantime, too bad, so sad. What's wrong with going down to Home Depot, spending 20 bucks, buying a garden hose, and turning on the faucet? Nothing. In fact, there's everything right with that kind of solution. It says, hey, we're being financially responsible. We spent 20 bucks. We're being creative, and most importantly, we're responding to the wants and needs of our community. Oh, did you do this? You're laughing about it, so sorry. It's like, whoa. So again, the problem is, I oftentimes hear cities actually apologize for their garden hose solutions. It's, well, we wanted to do this, but budget was tight, so we had to do that. It's like, no, you know what? You should be saying, we wanted to do this, budget was tight, we were able to do this. And you should be trumpeting this as a triumph over adversity, which is exactly what it is. Never apologize for your garden hose solutions. They show you at your very best. Again, being financially responsible, creative, and most importantly, responding to the wants and needs of your community, right? So next time you find yourself in that situation where you don't have all the budget that you'd like, and let's face it, when do you ever have as much budget as you'd like? Ask ourselves the question, what's the garden hose solution that, again, gets us down the road and allows us to respond to the wants and needs of our community? Finance, garden hose solution.
Yes, me too, yes.
I would purchase 2 gardens.
There you go. 2-for-1 deal.
I've done that.
Now, Greenville, South Carolina will tell you that they are the best downtown in America. And they make a very good case for it. Anybody been to Greenville? No? Yeah, okay. Greenville's very cool. So this is actually their main street. It's got a fantastic tree canopy. All kinds of local restaurants, local shops on both sides of the road. At the far end of this street, there's this amazing park with this waterfall in it. It has this fantastic footbridge that goes across it called Falls Park. This place is so good, other cities go there to study, right? Yet amidst all this incredibly well done big stuff, and by big stuff I do mean expensive stuff, the thing that surprised and delighted me, and the story I tell to folks like you, is actually something very, very small. It's actually the mice on Main. These little brass mice, and the story goes like 17 years ago now, a high school student came into the mayor's office with this idea. Says, hey, Mr. Mayor, I've got this idea. I want to do this scavenger hunt downtown. I want to cast these little brass mice, I want to put them down on Main Street and encourage people to sort of go and explore the city as they look for the mice. The mayor said, interesting. How much money do you need? And the kid said like $1,200. And you bet for $1,200 the mayor said sold, right? So now they cast the mice, they put them downtown there, and now you see people walking around downtown with these maps, right? You get the maps in the restaurants and shops. It's okay, come this particular street corner, turn 45 degrees, look up. Boom! You have kids and women and even grown men squeal at the light once they found one of these mice. And after you found one of these mice, you're looking everywhere for the damn thing. It's like, oh, there's another one. And you find yourself looking at stuff you otherwise probably would not even bother to look at, right? And the mice are actually all very cute. They've all been given names. They've all been given a backstory. And it's all been collected into this really cool children's book called The Mice on Main, right? Very, very sweet.
What
Now,
are they made of?
they're brass. Yeah.
I'm not